This is Paul Erdos for my Communications 101 class for Liberty University online. Imagine yourself on a hot day in the desert of Iraq on a routine patrol scenario where you've done this many times, perhaps even you're in your last week knowing that you're going to be returning home, so your mind's not on what you're doing. And you go out, and next thing you know, your best friend and you are sitting beside each other in the truck, and the next thing you know, there's a bright flash of light and a loud sound, and you don't even know where you're at. For a few seconds, you can't even tell where you are or who you are. And as your senses slowly regather, the only thing you know is that you're no longer in the vehicle and your friend is not next to you. And then you see a strange person asking you all types of strange questions in a strange language. And then it dawns on you that your convoy has just come across an IED, or an improvised explosive device, and it's brought mass destruction with casualties and mayhem. And you just witnessed the death of your friend, a close friend who's really sacrificed their life for your behalf. What I've explained is a traumatic scenario or a crisis scenario that is actually pretty familiar to many of our soldiers that are now returning from over in the Middle East war theater. And it's given me a reason to look in the career field of being a crisis management counselor. And so that's what I want to present to you tonight. And I want to look at it from three different aspects. The first thing I want to look at is the need in recent history that has brought about why crisis management counselors matter. Secondly, I want to look at it from the aspect of the professionals and the academics that have acknowledged that there is a need, and they are more or less sending out a plea for people to be willing to undergo the training so that they can be available. And then thirdly, I want to look at the aspect of how I feel that a Christian who patterns his life after Christ would be uniquely fitted to meet this need. The very first thing I want to look at, a little about myself, is that I have been a pastor or a church leader for more than the last 10 years, and I'm also a certified firefighter, so I've seen many traumatic events firsthand, and I've been witness to other individuals that they've gone through crisis periods, and I've been able to see how long-lasting those periods can be in their life if they're not managed properly. So I want to look at this first aspect that we have, the introduction that I started with. The recent war has really brought attention to the diagnosis of what is PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's basically individuals who've seen something so traumatic that their mind and their moral ethics can't justify the event that they've just seen, and so it really has long-lasting effects in their life. And that when they return home, in minor cases, we've seen breakdowns of homes and interpersonal relationships, and in the severe cases, we've seen some individuals that perhaps have, in their frustration, have committed acts of violence, of crime, or even murder because they don't know how to place or justify things in their thinking. And so the war has given need for it. Also, there have been many recent natural disasters around the world, from the tsunamis in Indonesia and Japan to the earthquakes around the world, to the hurricanes that have hit America's shores, and to September 11th, the day that stands in everybody's mind, where thousands of lives were taken from us in just a matter of minutes. And so we have to understand that all of these things present a unique problem for the human mind as we encounter the realities of a harsh real world and the ideal of what we may perceive in our heart or hope for in our mind. And so these have given rise to the need of this career field being filled. The second aspect I'd like to look at is also that professionals in these fields, particularly the Veterans Administration, the VA, the United States government, has done a lot of work dealing with primarily PTSD victims, and they have projected that there will be an increase of 37 to 41% of counselors needed to fill what they see coming in the future from individuals who suffer from PTSD or other traumatic events that will need counseling. The estimations are as high as 20% of the current soldiers, and perhaps even as high as 30% of Vietnam-era veterans are in need of crisis management counseling. And so the United States Department of Labor is the one who's projected these numbers, and they really are trying to be on the offensive and have individuals trained, which brings me to my third point. From the biblical worldview, I believe that a Christian who patterns his life after Christ is uniquely fitted to engage these individuals with the truth and the hope that they are so desperately looking for. And from the biblical perspective, we have the clearest example, of course, is Jesus Christ, who acknowledged before all of the world that one of his primary goals and motives to minister and to bring the gospel message to the world is that he saw that there were individuals who were sick, and that is either mentally or physically, who needed the physician, and that he is the great physician. Then we also have the Apostle Paul in Romans 15, who said that God is the God of hope, that Jesus Christ is the God of hope. And that's just two to pick from a wide assortment of verses that are there. But it points to this truth, that the biblical answer and the biblical truth is the truth that these individuals need. And I believe that as a Christian, it would be a unique suiting for each one of us who are willing to undergo the study and get the credentials so that we could meet individuals in that area. So I hope that those 3 points, the need, the plea, and the solution, that they illustrate to us, at least into our heart and into my mind, that it is a career field that a Christian should consider. I'd like to close with this one illustration. I have recently read a testimony of a man named Angus Bakken, and he is in South Africa. And he's an individual who had left Zambia, had to flee Zambia actually because of all of the racial tension that was going on, and around him many of his neighbors were killed and their land taken. His land was taken, his property ransacked, and he had to leave with his family and flee into South Africa and reestablish life. And he was not a Christian man at this time. 2 years later, he was introduced to who Jesus Christ was, and there he had a dynamic encounter with an understanding of who the